Have you ever been told not to ask questions about a place, even when your job depends on understanding it? My name is Nora Shepard. I'm a site guardian with the Yukon Heritage Trust. For the past 4 years, I've been stationed at a restricted archaeological site in the southern Yukon Territory, about 60 kilometers from Whitehorse. My job is simple on paper: monitor the site, document any changes, prevent unauthorized access, keep detailed logs. Standard heritage preservation work for a location that's been closed to the public since 1987. Most people assume I'm guarding old ruins or indigenous burial grounds. They're not entirely wrong, but they're not entirely right either. If you stay until the end, I'll tell you about the rules, not the official regulations in my employment contract. The other rules, the ones written in a notebook that's been passed down from guardian to guardian for 37 years. Rules that seem arbitrary until you break one. Rules that exist because previous guardians learned the hard way what happens when you don't follow them. Because at this site in the Yukon wilderness, there are protocols that have nothing to do with archaeology. Protocols that keep you alive. I grew up in Dawson City. My father was a geologist. My mother worked for Parks Canada. I spent my childhood exploring abandoned mining sites and learning to read the land, understanding geology, respecting places that had history older than human memory. After university in Vancouver, where I studied cultural resource management and northern archaeology, I wanted to come back to the Yukon. I wanted to work in heritage preservation, wanted to protect sites that mattered. The Heritage Trust hired me right after graduation. My first posting was at a historic Klondike Gold Rush site, then a First Nations fish camp. Each assignment taught me something different about northern preservation work. But after 3 years of seasonal contracts, I wanted something permanent. Something where I could really understand a single location over time. That's when they offered me the guardian position. Year-round posting, solo work, good pay, remote site, one of the oldest documented locations in the territory. The posting came with unusual requirements. No visitors allowed under any circumstances. No photographs of certain areas. Daily check-ins via satellite phone. And a 12-page security protocol that seemed excessive for an archaeological site. Instructions about which areas of the site could be entered during which times. Warnings about specific geological features. Guidelines about what materials could and couldn't be brought onto the property. Rules that felt more like superstition than science. I signed the contract anyway. I'd worked isolated sites before. Every location had its quirks, local legends, strange protocols based on cultural sensitivity or ecological protection. I figured this would be the same, just northern preservation work with extra paperwork. Nothing I couldn't handle. That was my first mistake. The site is located in a narrow valley between 2 unnamed mountains. Dense spruce forest on all sides. No road access. I get dropped off by helicopter every 2 months with supplies. The site itself covers about 4 hectares. Most of it is cordoned off with posts and rope. In the center is a depression in the ground, roughly circular, maybe 30 meters across. The depression is ringed by stones. Not a stone circle like Stonehenge, just stones, scattered in a pattern that looks random but isn't. And in the very center of the depression is what the official reports call geological anomaly of unknown origin. It looks like a crack in the earth, maybe 2 meters long, maybe 30 centimeters wide, deep enough that you can't see the bottom even with a flashlight. The crack is oriented perfectly north-south. It's been measured, surveyed, photographed, but never excavated. Never explored, because in 1987 a research team tried. 3 people went down with ropes and equipment. Only 2 came back up. and what came back with them led to the site being sealed immediately. My accommodation is a small cabin at the edge of the site. One room, wood stove, solar panels, satellite internet that works when it wants to. Everything I need to live alone for months at a time. On my first day, my supervisor flew in with me. Her name was Dr. Ellen Voss. She'd been overseeing this site for 15 years. She was in her 60s, calm, professional, but I could see tension in her shoulders when she looked at the depression. "You've read the employment contract," she said. "Not a question." "Yes, all of it. The official protocols, the safety guidelines, the check-in procedures. I understand them." She pulled a small notebook from her jacket. "Weathered. The edges worn from handling. This isn't official. It's not part of your contract. But every guardian who's worked here has kept this notebook. Added to it. Passed it on. There are 7 rules here. They're not in any government document. They're not based on archaeology or science. They're based on what previous guardians learned, what they observed, what happens when they make mistakes." She opened the notebook. The first page was dated 1987. The handwriting was neat, precise. It said, "Rule number 1. Do not bring metal objects within 10 meters of the central anomaly. This includes jewelry, tools, electronics with metal components, or any ferrous materials. Violation of this rule has consequences." I looked at Dr. Voss. "Why? Is there some kind of magnetic field?" "We don't know. We've run every test we can think of. Magnetic surveys, geological analysis, ground-penetrating radar. Nothing explains it. But every guardian who's ignored this rule has reported the same thing. And one guardian who pushed it too far never came back." She flipped through the notebook. 7 rules. Each one is stranger than the last. Each one accompanied by dated entries from previous guardians. Observations, warnings, descriptions of what happened when rules were broken. The handwriting changed throughout. Different guardians, different decades, but the warnings remained consistent. "You'll want to dismiss these," Dr. Voss said. "You'll want to think previous guardians were superstitious, isolated for too long, seeing patterns that aren't there. But I'm telling you right now, follow these rules exactly. Don't test them. Don't try to understand them. Just follow them. Because this site, it's not what the official reports say it is. Something else. Something older. Something that operates by rules we don't fully comprehend." She handed me the notebook. "Read it tonight. Memorize the rules. And tomorrow I'll show you the boundaries, the areas you monitor, the areas you never enter, the times of day when certain protocols apply. After that, you're on your own. 2 months until the next supply drop. Just you and the site. Think you can handle it?" I took the notebook. It was heavier than it should have been. Like the weight of all those previous guardians was somehow contained in those pages. "Yes, I can handle it." Dr. Voss looked at me for a long moment. "I hope so. We've had 4 guardians in the last 15 years. 2 completed their contracts. 1 requested emergency evacuation after 6 months. And 1..." She paused. "1 didn't follow the rules. We found his belongings, his logs, but we never found him. The RCMP searched for 3 weeks. Nothing. So when I say follow the rules, I mean it. This isn't a suggestion. This is survival." She left the next morning. The helicopter lifted off. The sound faded, and I was alone. Alone with a site I didn't understand. With rules that made no sense. With a notebook full of warnings from people who'd learned what happens when you break protocols that shouldn't exist. That night, I sat in the cabin reading every page, every entry, every warning. The first rule was clear: no metal near the anomaly, but the other rules were strange, more specific, more impossible to explain through normal science. And each one was accompanied by entries describing what happened when guardians violated them. Rule number 2: do not approach the anomaly between sunset and sunrise. Multiple guardians reported seeing lights, hearing sounds, feeling pulled toward the crack. One guardian wrote, "I walked to the edge during twilight. Something looked back at me from the darkness below. I ran. Haven't been back after dark since. Won't ever go back." Rule number 3: if you hear your name called from the forest, do not respond. Do not investigate. Return to the cabin immediately. This rule had the most entries, different guardians, different years, all describing the same thing. Voices calling from the trees, voices that sounded like people they knew, voices that led one guardian into the forest. He was found 3 days later. I wouldn't speak about what happened. Resigned immediately. Rule number 4: the stones around the depression must not be moved. A guardian in 1993 had reorganized them, tried to create a more symmetrical pattern. Within a week, all the stones had returned to their original positions. No explanation, no tracks, no evidence of who or what had moved them back. Rule number 5: if the crack grows wider, report it immediately and evacuate. This rule had no entries explaining why, just the instructions, just a warning. But the urgency in the handwriting made it clear. This was the rule you didn't question. Rule number 6: do not take photographs of the anomaly itself. Cameras malfunction, images are corrupt, and sometimes what appears in the photos isn't what was there when you took them. A guardian in 2008 had tried 5 attempts, 5 corrupted files. On the 6th attempt, the image showed something in the crack, something that shouldn't have been possible. He deleted all the photos. Added this rule. Rule number 7: if you see someone else at the site, they are not authorized to be there. Contact Dr. Voss immediately. Do not interact with them. Do not approach them. Return to the cabin and lock the door. This rule had no explanation, just a warning. And a note from 2015. Saw a man standing at the anomaly. Called Dr. Voss. She said no one was scheduled to visit. By the time I looked again, he was gone. Footprints led to the crack, then stopped. Found no trace. I still don't know who or what I saw. I closed the notebook. I tried to process what I'd read. This was supposed to be an archaeological site, a place of scientific interest. But these rules, they described something else. Something that didn't fit any framework I'd learned in university. Something that existed in the gap between what we know and what we pretend doesn't exist. Tomorrow I'd start my first patrol. I'd see the anomaly up close for the first time. I'd learn the boundaries, the restricted areas, the monitoring protocols, and I'd decide whether these rules were the paranoid writings of isolated guardians or whether they were the only thing standing between me and whatever existed in that crack in the earth. Because in the Yukon wilderness, 60 kilometers from help, surrounded by forest and mountains and silence, I was about to learn that some places don't follow the rules we think govern reality. Some places have their own rules, their own logic, their own consequences for those who don't respect them. And tomorrow I'd begin learning what those consequences were, whether I was ready or not. Dr. Voss woke me at dawn. She'd stayed overnight to complete my orientation. We ate a quick breakfast. Then she led me down the trail toward the site. The morning was cold. September in the Yukon. Frost on the ground. Our breath is visible in the air. The depression came into view after a 5-minute walk. Seeing it in daylight for the first time made my chest tighten. The stones around the perimeter weren't just scattered. They formed a pattern. Not obvious, but there. Each stone was placed with intention, and in the center the crack. Dark, narrow, running perfectly north to south like someone had drawn a line across the earth with a blade. Once in 2003, all the stones flipped over in a single night. The Guardian found them the next morning, different sides up. No tracks, no evidence of who did it. It took 6 weeks for them to flip back. Same thing, no explanation. We walked the perimeter. Dr. Voss showed me the monitoring points for locations around the depression where I'd take photographs and measurements. She showed me how to document the crack's width, how to note any changes in the surrounding vegetation, how to record temperature anomalies, standard scientific observation. But underlying it all was the unspoken truth. We were monitoring something we didn't understand, something that shouldn't exist but did. One more thing, Dr. Voss said as we returned to the cabin. The forest around this site. Sometimes you'll hear things, sounds that don't match any animal you know. Voices, music, mechanical noises. Don't investigate. Don't follow them. They're part of whatever this place is. Acknowledge them in your log if you want, but don't engage. The Guardian who went missing in 2012? His last log entry mentioned hearing singing from the forest. He went to investigate, never came back. She left 2 hours later. The helicopter lifted off. The sound faded, and I was alone, truly alone. Just me and the site and the rules. That first day passed normally. I unpacked my supplies, set up my workspace, familiarized myself with the cabin systems. In the afternoon, I did my first official monitoring round. Stayed well outside the stone perimeter. Took photographs from the designated points. Documented the crack's width at 3 locations. Note the positions of 12 key stones. Everything was exactly as the previous Guardian had logged it. Normal, routine, scientific. But as I was finishing, I heard something. Faint. Coming from the forest to the east. It sounded like metal scraping on metal. Rhythmic. Deliberate. I froze. Listen. The sound continued for maybe 30 seconds. Then stopped. Just stopped. I waited. Silence. I checked my watch. 4:47 p.m. Still daylight. Nothing in the rules about sounds during the day. I made a note in my log. Day 1, 16:47 metallic scraping sound from eastern forest. Duration approximately 30 seconds. No visible source. Did not investigate. Professional. Detached. But my hand shook slightly as I wrote. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the crack. About what Dr. Voss had said. About the Guardian who'd gotten too close with metal. About the photos that showed things that weren't there. About voices in the forest. I wanted to dismiss it. I wanted to believe there was a rational explanation. Magnetic anomaly. Geological instability. Acoustic tricks caused by the valley's shape. But I'd seen Dr. Voss's face. I heard the fear in her voice when she talked about the missing Guardian. She wasn't the type to believe in supernatural nonsense. She was a scientist. Rational. Evidence-based. If she believed the rules mattered, there was a reason. At 11:43 p.m., I heard my name. Clear. Distinct. Coming from outside. Nora. Not loud. Just there. Like someone standing right outside the cabin window. I sat up in bed. Heart pounding. The voice came again. Nora, are you there? It sounded like my supervisor from my previous posting. Same voice. Same accent. But he was in Whitehorse. Hundreds of kilometers away. I remembered rule number 3. If you hear your name called from the forest, do not respond. Do not investigate. I stayed in bed, covered my head with the blanket like a child. The voice called 3 more times, each time a different person. My father, my old roommate from university, my best friend from high school. Then it stopped. Silence. I lay awake until dawn. The next morning I found footprints outside my cabin, leading from the forest to my window, then back to the forest. But they weren't human footprints. Too narrow, too long. The stride length was impossible. I photographed them, measured them. Each print was 43 centimeters long. The stride was nearly 2 meters. Nothing I knew could make tracks like that. I called Dr. Voss on the satellite phone, told her what happened. She was quiet for a moment. You didn't respond to the voices? No. I followed the rules. Good. The tracks? Photograph them but don't follow them. They'll be gone by tomorrow. They always are. And Nora? This is normal for the site. You're going to see things, hear things, experience things that don't make sense. That's why the rules exist. Follow them and you'll be fine. Break them and... She paused. Just follow them. I spent the rest of the day monitoring, taking measurements, recording observations. The tracks were gone by afternoon. Just like Dr. Voss said, no trace they'd ever existed except my photographs. I documented it all, tried to maintain scientific detachment. But inside I was starting to understand. This site wasn't what the official reports claimed. This site was something else entirely. Over the next 2 weeks, I settled into a routine. Morning monitoring, afternoon documentation, evening radio check-in. The rules became second nature. No metal near the anomaly. Don't approach after dark. Don't respond to voices. Don't photograph the crack. Don't move the stones. Report any changes. Avoid contact with unauthorized visitors. But I also started noticing patterns. The metallic sounds always came from the east, always between 4 o'clock and 5 p.m. The voices always called at night, always used names of people I knew. And 3 times I saw lights near the depression after dark, blue-white, pulsing, moving in ways that suggested intelligence. I logged everything, reported it to Dr. Voss. She said it was normal, expected, part of the site's documented behavior. On day 16, something changed. I was doing my afternoon monitoring when I noticed the crack was wider. Not by much, maybe 2 centimeters, but measurable. I documented it, photographed it from all 4 monitoring points. The width had increased from 31 centimeters to 33 centimeters. I called Dr. Voss immediately. How much wider? She asked. Her voice was tense. 2 centimeters. Maybe slightly more. You're certain? I've been measuring it daily. This is definite. There was a long pause. Okay. Continue monitoring. If it increases another centimeter, I want to know immediately. If it reaches a 5 centimeter total increase, we may need to evacuate you. What happens if it keeps growing? We don't know. It's never grown more than 3 centimeters before. Every time it's expanded, it's returned to normal width within a week. But we don't know what would happen if it continued. And we're not willing to find out with you there. The crack continued widening, 1 millimeter per day. Slow but consistent. By day 20, it was 35 centimeters wide. I could see deeper into it now. The walls were smooth, too smooth, like they'd been carved or melted. And sometimes when the light hit it right, I saw something moving down there, far down, something that reflected light in ways that made my eyes hurt. Then the stones started moving, not all at once, but 1 per night. I document their positions in the evening. By morning, 1 would have shifted. Maybe a meter. Maybe less. Always closer to the crack. Like they were being pulled. I reported it. Dr. Voss said to keep monitoring. Said it was concerning but not unprecedented. On day 23 I broke a rule. Not intentionally, but I broke it. I was doing evening documentation. The sun was setting. I was photographing the last monitoring point when I heard something. A voice. But not from the forest. From the crack. Quiet. Distant. Speaking in a language I didn't recognize. I should have left immediately. Should have followed rule number 2 about approaching after sunset. But curiosity overwhelmed caution. I walked closer. Stayed outside the stone perimeter. But closer than I should have been as darkness fell. The voice continued. Rhythmic. Like chanting. I could see the crack more clearly from this position. See the smooth walls. See how deep it really was. And then I saw something else. Movement. Deep in the darkness. Something climbing up. I ran. Back to the cabin. Locked the door. Called Dr. Voss. She answered on the first ring. I told her what happened. What I'd heard. What I'd seen. There was a long silence. You approached it after sunset. Yes. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. No, you shouldn't have. But you're okay. You didn't cross the stone line. You didn't go into depression. You left when you saw movement. That probably saved you. Her voice softened. Nora, I need you to listen carefully. The rules exist because of exactly this kind of situation. The site. It tests you. It waits for moments of weakness. Moments when curiosity overrides caution. The guardian who went missing? He approached the crack at night. Crossed the stone line. We found his flashlight at the edge. Found his notebook. His last entry said he could hear his daughter calling from inside. But his daughter was in Calgary. Safe. It wasn't her. It was never her. It was the site. Using what he loved to draw him in. I spent the next week being extra careful. Following every rule precisely. The crack stopped growing. Stabilized at 36 centimeters. The stones stopped moving. The voices still called at night, but I ignored them. Everything seemed to return to normal. I started to relax. I started to think maybe the worst was over. Then on day 31 I saw someone. Standing at the anomaly. Mid-afternoon. Broad daylight. A man. Maybe 50 years old. Wearing outdoor gear that looked 20 years out of date. He was standing inside the stone perimeter. Right at the edge of the crack. Looking down into it. I grabbed my radio. Started to call Dr. Voss. Then I remembered rule number 7. If you see someone else at the site, do not interact. Contact Dr. Voss. Return to the cabin. I backed away slowly, keeping my eyes on the figure. He didn't move. Didn't acknowledge me. Just stood there, staring into the crack. I made it back to the cabin. Called Dr. Voss. Told her what I'd seen. She was quiet for a moment. Describe him. I did. Every detail I could remember. The clothing. The stance. The way he stood. When I finished, Dr. Voss's voice was strained. That's Michael Rourke. He was the guardian in 2012. The one who went missing. You saw him? Yes, I saw him. He was right there. At the crack. That's impossible. We searched for 3 weeks. Used dogs. Thermal imaging. Ground-penetrating radar. He's been gone for 15 years. He can't be there. He can't be. She stopped. Stay in the cabin. Lock the doors. I'm arranging an emergency evacuation. We're pulling you out tomorrow. What? Why? I followed the rules. I didn't interact. I did everything right. I know. But if you're seeing him, If he's appearing at the site, that means something has changed. Something fundamental. We don't know what it means. We don't know if it's safe. We're not taking chances. Pack your essentials. Be ready at dawn. I packed that night. I tried to sleep. Couldn't. At 2 a.m., I heard scratching at the door. Like fingernails on wood. Rhythmic. Persistent. I turned on every light in the cabin. The scratching continued for hours. Then stopped just before dawn. The helicopter arrived at 7 a.m. Dr. Voss was on it. She looked exhausted. Worried. We loaded my gear quickly. As we were about to board, I looked back at the site. The man was there again. Still standing at the edge. Still looking down. But this time he turned. Looked directly at me. Raised one hand. Waved. Then stepped into the crack. Just stepped forward and disappeared. Dr. Voss saw it too. She grabbed my arm. Get in. Now. We lifted off. As the site grew smaller below us, I could see something I hadn't noticed before. The stones around the depression had formed a pattern. From the air it was obvious. They weren't randomly placed. They were arranged in a spiral, leading inward, leading to the crack. And the crack itself was glowing. Faint. Blue-white. Pulsing like something alive. Dr. Voss saw me looking. That glow. It only appears when the site is active. When something is happening. We've documented it 3 times in 40 years. Each time something changed. Something fundamental about the site's behavior. After the first glow, the voices started. After the second, the stones began moving. And now? She trailed off. What happens now? We don't know. That's why you're out. We can't risk another guardian. Can't risk another Michael Rourke. The site is sealed now. Indefinitely. No more guardians. No more monitoring. We'll observe it remotely. Satellite imaging. Seismic sensors. But no more human presence on site. I spent 2 weeks in Whitehorse being debriefed. Medical evaluations. Psychological assessment. Documentation review. They were checking if I was stable. If what I'd experienced had damaged me somehow. I told them I was fine. Told them I'd followed the rules. That the rules had kept me safe. They seemed satisfied. Cleared me for return to work. But not at that site. Never at that site. I took a new posting. A historic site near Dawson City. Normal work. Tourists. Interpretive programs. No mysterious cracks in the earth. No impossible rules. No voices calling my name from the darkness. But I think about that site every day. About the crack. About the stones. About Michael Rourke stepping into the anomaly after 15 years. About what might have happened if I hadn't followed the rules. Dr. Voss retired 6 months after my evacuation. She called me before she left. Told me they continued monitoring the site remotely. The crack had grown to 42 centimeters. The largest on record. All the stones had moved to within 1 meter of the edge. And the seismic sensors were picking up vibrations. Regular. Rhythmic. Like something moving deep underground. Like waking up. We're considering filling it in, she said. Concrete. Steel reinforcement. Seal it permanently. But we're not sure that would work. Not sure it would do anything except anger whatever's down there. So for now we watch. We wait. And we hope it stays stable. And if it doesn't, then we'll have bigger problems than one missing guardian. Much bigger problems. I never went back to that site. Never wanted to. But sometimes late at night I hear metal scraping on metal. Faint. Distant. Coming from no particular direction. And sometimes I hear my name called in voices I recognize. The voices of people I know are safe. Are far away. But the voices are there nonetheless. testing me, seeing if I'll respond, seeing if I've forgotten the rules. But I haven't forgotten. I never will. Because I learned something in those 31 days guarding that site in the Yukon wilderness. Learned that there are places in this world that operate by rules we don't understand. Places that exist in the gaps between what we know and what we pretend doesn't exist. Places where the normal laws of reality don't quite apply. And the only way to survive those places is to respect the rules, even when they don't make sense, even when everything in you wants to break them. Especially then. Rule number 1 was simple. Don't bring metal. But the real rule was deeper. The real rule was respect. Respect what you don't understand. Acknowledge that some places have their own logic, their own requirements, their own consequences for those who ignore them. Michael Rourke didn't respect that. He pushed. He investigated. He tried to understand. And the site took him, kept him for 15 years, then showed him to me as a warning, a reminder, a proof that the rules exist for a reason. I work at heritage sites now, different sites, normal sites, but I carry that notebook with me, the one with the 7 rules, the one passed down from guardian to guardian. I read it sometimes, remind myself that what I experienced was real, that the rules worked, that following them saved me from whatever fate took Michael Rourke. And I wonder about the site now, about whether it's still growing, whether the stones have moved closer, whether the crack has opened wide enough for something to emerge. Dr. Voss said they're monitoring it. But I know the truth. You can't monitor something like that from a distance. You can't understand it through sensors and satellites. The only way to truly know what's happening at that site is to be there, to stand at the edge, to look into the crack, to hear the voices, to follow the rules. But no one's willing to do that anymore. No one's willing to risk becoming another guardian who doesn't come back. Another Michael Rourke. Another entry in the notebook warning future guardians about what happens when you break the rules. So the site sits there, sealed, restricted, marked on maps as geological anomalies do not approach. And whatever exists in that crack, whatever called my name in the darkness, whatever pulled Michael Rourke in and kept him for 15 years, it waits. Patient, timeless, following rules of its own that we'll never fully understand. And that's what I learned in the Yukon. That's what 31 days taught me. That there are some things we're not meant to understand. Some places we're not meant to explore. Some rules we're not meant to break. And the only way to survive encountering those things is to accept our limitations. Accept that knowledge has boundaries. Accept that some mysteries are meant to stay mysterious. Because the alternative is stepping into the crack, following the voices, breaking the rules, and becoming another warning for whoever comes after you. Another name in the notebook. Another proof that in some places, in some situations, the only thing between survival and disappearance is following rules you don't understand. Rules that seem arbitrary until you break them. Rules written in blood and disappearances and the hard-earned wisdom of people who learn too late what happens when you don't listen. I listened. I followed the rules. And I survived. That's all any guardian can hope for at a site like that. Survival. Understanding is too much to ask. Too dangerous to pursue. So you follow the rules. You respect the boundaries. And you hope that whatever waits in the darkness, whatever moves in the crack, whatever is called Michael Rourke's name until he can no longer resist, you hope it stays where it is. Where it's always been. Where it will always be. Waiting for the next person who thinks the rules don't apply to them. Waiting for the next person who brings metal too close. Who approaches after dark. Who responds to the voices. Who crosses the stone line. Waiting for the next guardian who forgets that rule number 1 isn't about metal. It's about respect. And respect is the only thing that keeps you alive in places where the rules are older than human understanding, older than science, older than reason, where the only law that matters is the one written in that notebook, the one passed down from guardian to guardian, the one that says, follow the rules, all of them, exactly, or become another mystery for the next guardian to document, another disappearance for Dr. Voss to explain, another proof that some places don't follow our rules. They have their own, and they enforce them,